Hi, I'm Sala, and in this video we are going to continue with our study of 2D rotations. In previous videos we defined the rotation matrix and derived some properties. We will review them in a minute. In this video we will see how we can recover the trigonometric formula from just the idea that we preserve length and orientation. It's important because it will allow generalizing rotations to 3D, 4D, complex rotations or whatever without the need of thinking on trigonometric expressions. So let's go. The basic idea on rotation was that, okay, if a robot detected some object at a given angle and a given distance in his forward and left, let's say, coordinate axis that we call body frame, body axis. Okay, if the robot had a compass that said that it was tilted theta degrees with respect to another reference frame, east-north, okay, then the position of the green dot in body frame will be this green dot in world frame, whose coordinates will be the sine and cosine of the angle sum. So, applying that sum of angle formula, we derive this thing that we could express in matrix form. So this was the 2D rotation matrix. And in the previous video, we discussed some of the properties, which were orthogonality, transpose is inverse, so the columns and the rows are norm 1 and perpendicular between them, so they are an orthonormal basis. Orthonormal basis and rotations are sort of the same once we add the determinant 1 orientation preservation. And then we discussed the fact that eigenvalues were complex numbers and eigenvectors were complex numbers. So maybe there is something to learn by upgrading our study to complex numbers. We are not doing that here. And we had this commutativity stuff that only applied to two-dimensional rotations. Good. Which is the goal of this video? Well, showing that the two first properties are enough to redefine rotations and to recover this trigonometric formula. In other words, by just requiring metric preservation, which means that this is identity, and orientation preservation, determinant 1, so that, if my thumb rotates counterclockwise to find my index finger, the same happens when it is rotated, not like reflections in which my other hand, now my thumb needs to rotate clockwise to find the other finger. So, well, rotation preserve orientation. And with our commutativities, so with just these two first ideas, we can recover trigonometry, and let's do that as the goal of this video. So let us consider any arbitrary matrix with some numbers a, b, q, d. I did not use the C letter because we may get confused with cosine, so q. Then if I compute this expression, this is R transpose. Doing operations, we find that the 1 term is a squared plus b squared. The 1 term is aq plus bd. The 2 is qa plus db, which is the same as this one. And the 2 element is q squared plus d squared. So this must be 1, this must be 1, this must be 0. They are the same. So we have 3 equations arising from this thing that we defined as a rotation. What happens now? Well, if we have 4 numbers and 3 equations, seems that we have 1 degree of freedom. So indeed, it seems that we are recovering the theta degree of freedom of 2D rotations. Yes, but we need further discussion because determinant equal to 1 orientation preservation is also this equation, AD minus BQ equal to 1. So this is the determinant. And then does this mean that we have 4 equations for unknowns and then we have 0 degrees of freedom, so that with the determinant 1 and this property we can determine a unique solution, let's say, for these equations? Well, it's not true, because the determinant equal to 1 can be actually derived from these 3 equations, because if we multiply a squared plus b squared times q squared plus d squared, this thing, well, of course, 1 times 1 will be 1. And if we develop this multiplication, you can check that this equality holds. I leave it to you. So, if we now replace this thing into there, we realize that this is 0, so the determinant, AD minus BQ, forcedly squared must be 1. So the determinant of R must be plus minus 1. So the idea is that this equation here is not a new one. It is just a consequence of the 3 above, and they are quadratic equations, let's say. So they have like 2-point solution, let's say. These 3 equations have one solution with determinant 1 and another solution with determinant minus 1. So then determinant 1 is just making a discrete choice between the rotation and the reflection. We have 2 matrices verifying that. So we can still consider that we really have 3 equations, 1 degree of freedom, and then 2 solutions of these equations. And we take the rotation one. So we still keep 1 degree of freedom, which means that if I invent one of these letters, I will be able to recover the other 3. Let's delve into that. This was R, and then remember that this condition meant that columns were perpendicular and modulus 1. So first, let us discuss what needs to happen so that QD is orthogonal to AB. Well, if this is AB, then the orthogonal line is minus BA and its multiples. Indeed, look at the scalar product, AB row times minus BA column, well, minus AB plus AB is 0. And then, of course, if I multiply minus BA times any lambda, I still get 0. So, from this condition, we are forced to admit that QD must be proportional to minus BA. Good. Which proportional constant? Well, remember that A squared plus B squared must be 1, and so Q squared plus D squared. The squares must also sum 1. So if they must have the same length, it means that the proportionality constant must be either 1 or minus 1. These are the 2 choices, let's say. And which choice we need to take? Well, lambda equal 1 is the one that makes the determinant plus 1, which we are requiring to get into the rotations and not into the reflections. So then the rotation matrix must have this form. AB, these 2 numbers, and QD must be the perpendicular, same length. So we are almost there, in the sense that, if I know that A squared plus B squared is 1, then if I invent A, I can derive B from this. Again, 2 numbers for B, we'll see it in a minute, but roughly, apart from those 2 discrete choices, from A I get B, and then I get the rest of the matrix, 1 degree of freedom. So there exists some theta, so A is the cosine and B is the sine. This is it. Because, cosine squared plus sine squared is 1, so for sure we can find that theta, and then we will define that for theta equals 0, we must get identity. 0 must be not rotating. Again, is taking a reference point. I mean, something must mean doing nothing, and the reasonable choice is, 0. And then that's why A is the cosine and B is the sine, because, if I had chosen, let's say, A equal sinus of theta and B cosinus, we would also verify this, but then we will not be verifying our arbitrary choice that theta equals 0 means not rotating. So if I add that reference frame idea, then I get this rotation from this, and saying that 0 is not rotating. And look that if I change theta to minus theta, I would also verify this. But this is the same again as finding a reference system, let's say, for rotations, in which this is theta equals 0, not rotating with respect to x body, y body, let's say. And also, depending on what I choose for B, either sinus or minus sinus or theta or minus theta, there is one choice, which is this one, so that positive theta turns in that direction. If I had chosen the other solution of this quadratic equation, then positive theta would turn in the clockwise direction, but in order to have the same units and sense of rotation as everybody else, we are choosing this. So this is it. We ended with the same rotation matrix that we derived from the sum of angles identities and these pictures of a robot rotating, but instead of that, we have derived the same thing from orientation preservation and metric preservation, length preservation. We realized that we had 1 degree of freedom, and choosing that degree of freedom as being the cosine of something, when that something was 0, then we got the identity. We are happy with that reference system. And also the two choices of B, we chose the one that positive theta indicated the clockwise rotation. From these properties and some choices of my reference frame, let's say, for theta, we derive the trigonometric formulas again. So we will be able to use these same definitions to define and derive properties of 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, or 8-dimensional rotations without needing to think how triangles and trigonometry and projections and whatever work in 8 dimensions. So this is it. Recovering trigonometry from metric and orientation preservation was the goal of this video, so we end here. Subsequent videos will study velocity map, exponential map, etc. Thanks for watching.